When Star Wars first premiered, memories of 1977. May 1977. America was still heavy, with the lingering weight of the Vietnam War. In neighborhoods across the country, people spoke of loss, of a crisis of faith, of wounds that had not yet healed. Disco music filled the clubs. Rock anthems echoed in bars. And in the movie theaters, audiences had grown accustomed to films that were dark, gritty, and unflinching. From The Godfather to Taxi Driver, cinema of the 1970s painted a sobering portrait of the times, filled with violence, corruption, and despair. In that climate, no one expected that a science fiction film, with talking robots, spaceships, and glowing swords, would change the world. But on May 25, 1977, that's exactly what happened. That day, outside Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, later known as Mann's Chinese Theater, a strange sight unfolded. Long lines of moviegoers stretched around the block. Some brought folding chairs. Some carried snacks. All waited patiently for the doors to open. On their faces was a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. They had no idea they were about to witness one of the most important moments in film history. The lights dimmed. The theater went black. And on the screen, a simple line of text appeared. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Moments later, John Williams' score erupted. Bold, triumphant, larger than life. The brass thundered. The percussion pounded. And the audience was swept away by a wall of sound. Then, giant golden letters rolled back into the stars. Star Wars. At once, people realized they were entering something completely new. And then came the image that stunned the world. A colossal starship, so enormous it seemed endless, gliding across the screen. In the mix of music and sound design, its engine seemed to roar through the speakers as laser fire streaked across the sky. For the first time, moviegoers saw space battles that felt real. The audience sat breathless. A new universe had opened before them. They met Luke Skywalker, the restless young man on the desert planet of Tatooine, yearning for something greater. They met Princess Leia, fearless, determined, standing tall against an empire. They laughed at Han Solo's wit, admired Chewbacca's towering strength, and fell in love with the quirky charm of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Two machines that somehow felt startlingly human. And then the shadow appeared. Darth Vader. Cloaked in black, his mechanical breathing echoing through the theater. The room fell silent. At that moment, one of the greatest villains in cinematic history stepped into popular culture. Scene after scene felt like pure magic. Endless golden deserts. The Millennium Falcon soaring through the galaxy. Blinding red and green lasers cutting through the darkness. And above all, the glowing hum of lightsabers clashing in the shadows. A symbol that would forever live in our imagination. When the film finally ended, the lights came back on. But no one moved. The audience sat still, as if waking from a dream. Then suddenly, the theater erupted in applause. People poured into the streets. But instead of going home, many rushed straight back to the box office, eager to see it again. Word spread like wildfire. Star Wars opened in just 32 theaters across the country. But soon, cinemas everywhere scrambled to bring it in. Hollywood studios stared in disbelief. How could something once dismissed as childish capture the hearts of millions? But the truth was undeniable. Star Wars was no longer just a movie. It was a phenomenon. That summer, America was swept into a tidal wave of Star Wars. Children dueled with wooden sticks, shouting, "May the Force be with you." Toy stores sold out of action figures. Posters plastered city walls. From the suburbs to the big cities, everyone was talking about it. George Lucas, once a relatively unknown director, suddenly became a legend. But perhaps his greatest gamble was not in making the movie. It was in the deal he struck. Lucas agreed to take a smaller fee in exchange for two things: the sequel rights and the merchandising rights. That single decision changed Hollywood forever. It ushered in an era of toys, books, and products tied to films. Over the years, it also made Lucas a billionaire, culminating decades later when he sold Lucasfilm to Disney. And yet, the true power of Star Wars went far beyond money. It touched something deep inside its audience. In a society weary from conflict, divided and uncertain, the film became a kind of medicine. It whispered that even in the darkest times, light could still be found. It reminded people that imagination could open doors, that adventure could begin anywhere, and that every ordinary person might have the chance to be a hero. More than 4 decades have passed since that first premiere. Many of those 1977 audiences are grandparents now. But when they recall that summer night, their eyes still light up. They remember the first glimpse of a colossal starship gliding across the screen. They remember the swell of John Williams' music. They remember the wonder of stepping into a galaxy that felt impossibly far away, and yet strangely close to the heart. Critics would call it a cinematic revolution. But for the people who lived it, the definition was simpler. Star Wars made them believe that anything was possible. Because after 1977, cinema was never the same again. And perhaps the most extraordinary thing is this. Whether you first saw Star Wars in 1977 or decades later, the feeling it gives is the same. The sense of stepping into a story without limits. A universe where imagination burns brighter than fear. So maybe the real question isn't, do you like Star Wars? Maybe the real question is, do you remember the first time you walked into a theater and saw an entire new world open before your eyes? Because it may be that in that very moment, you found your own star in the vast galaxy above.